Have you ever just dreamed of starting your own business? Taking that one brilliant idea and actually turning it into a thriving reality? It's a seriously thrilling thought. But before you can go out and conquer the market, you really have to figure out exactly how to build your empire legally. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to trace the entire evolutionary journey of business organizations. And we'll be looking at this whole journey through a very specific lens, the control versus liability seesaw. It's essentially the ultimate balancing act that literally every single founder has to face.
Think of our agenda today as a menu of options. We're going from starting solo to teaming up, finding power in numbers, building an empire, and finally, choosing your path. Let's jump right in.
Stage 1. Starting solo with the sole proprietorship.
Okay, let's dive into this one. The sole proprietorship is exactly what it sounds like, a one-man or one-woman show. This is where most entrepreneurial journeys begin. You are the boss. You invest the capital, you make all the decisions, and maybe best of all, you keep 100% of the profits. You have absolute, complete control over your own destiny. But, and this is a big but, as we'll see on our seesaw, having total control means you're also taking on 100% of the risk.
Right out of the gate, this setup is incredibly appealing. You get to make lightning-quick decisions without having to consult some board of directors. You can keep your business secrets entirely to yourself. And there's a massive direct incentive because, well, every dollar earned goes straight into your pocket. But we really need to look closely at those limitations. You're working with limited resources, and the business effectively dies if something happens to you. But the real villain here? That last point, unlimited liability. That means the law literally sees zero difference between you and your business. If the business fails or gets sued, your personal savings, your car, even your house are totally on the line to pay off those debts.
So that brings us to a pretty massive roadblock for early entrepreneurs. How on earth do you grow when your own pockets are empty and you only have 24 hours in a day? To overcome those limits of solo management and limited capital, a founder simply has to evolve.
And that evolution leads us right to stage 2, teaming up. We're looking at partnerships and family business models.
Now, before we get into standard partnerships, let's look at a really fascinating model found only in India, the joint Hindu family business. This is a business owned entirely by members of a family and governed by Hindu law. At the very top of the ladder, you have the Karta, the eldest member who manages the whole operation. So how does our risk seesaw work in this specific family dynamic? Well, the Karta holds all the management control, but they also take on unlimited liability. Meanwhile, the other family members, who are called co-parceners, have their liability strictly limited to their share of the ancestral property. It's this ancient, built-in way to balance risk within a family unit.
But what if you want to team up with friends, colleagues, or maybe outside investors? That brings us to the general partnership. The 1932 Act defines this as the relation between persons who have agreed to share the profits of a business carried on by all or any of them acting for all. By bringing in up to 50 partners, you get to pool significantly more funds and enjoy balanced decision-making. However, our seesaw actually hasn't tipped much when it comes to personal risk. You are still facing unlimited liability, and now you've also introduced the potential for interpersonal conflicts that could literally dissolve the firm.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is the sheer variety of partners you can legally have. You've got active partners running the day-to-day, sleeping or dormant partners who just provide the cash, and secret partners whose involvement is completely hidden from the public eye. You can even have nominal partners. These are folks who just lend their famous name or reputation to the business without investing a single dime. But notice the trend with liability. No matter what type of partner you are, even if you're just a nominal partner or someone whose actions simply lead the public to believe you're a partner by estoppel, your liability to the outside world is practically always unlimited. So the financial risk is shared among the group, sure, but it is still absolute.
If you do decide to go down the partnership route, you'll definitely want to get it registered with the registrar of firms. The procedure itself is pretty straightforward. You submit an application signed by everyone detailing the firm's location and duration, deposit the fees, and the registrar hands over a certificate. Now, while registration is technically optional under the law, skipping it is a massive gamble. Why? Because an unregistered firm legally cannot sue third parties to recover claims. So practically speaking, registration is an absolute must to protect your operations.
Okay, let's take a brief detour on our evolutionary journey. What if your primary goal isn't just generating massive individual profit? What if it's actually about community survival, mutual help, and service?
That brings us to stage 3, power in numbers with the cooperative society.
A cooperative society is built entirely on this beautiful principle of self-help through mutual help, each for all and all for each. You just need a minimum of 10 adult members to get one started. And you guys, this model fundamentally shifts our control versus liability seesaw in a huge way. For the very first time in our journey, the liability of the members is officially limited to their capital contribution. And what about control? Well, it's no longer based on who has the biggest wallet. It's pure democratic control, one man, one vote, completely driven by a service motive to help the members rather than just sheer profit extraction.
And there is just an amazing variety of cooperatives out there designed specifically to protect and empower everyday people. Consumers' cooperatives eliminate those pesky middlemen to supply goods at fair prices. Producers' cooperatives help small craftsmen get raw materials. Marketing and farmers' cooperatives pool their output together to drastically increase their bargaining power in the broader market. Credit cooperatives protect members from the exploitation of moneylenders, and housing cooperatives actually help members buy homes affordably. It's really a powerful structural tool to secure large-scale benefits for an entire community.
However, while cooperatives are absolutely fantastic for community service, they can sometimes struggle with limited resources, a lack of secrecy, and frankly, inefficient management. So we have to ask our next big question. How do you build a profit-driven entity massive enough to outlive you, with access to almost limitless capital?
Welcome to the climax of our journey, Stage 4, Building an Empire with the Joint Stock Company.
So the absolutely crucial point to understand here is that a company is an entirely separate legal entity. It is an artificial person created by law. It can own property, borrow funds, and enter into contracts entirely in its own name, stamped with its own common seal. And this separation brings two massive, total game-changing advantages. First up, perpetual succession. The company can effectively live forever. It's completely unaffected by the death, insanity, or insolvency of its members. Second, limited liability. Your personal risk as an investor is strictly limited to your capital contribution. So for the first time in the purely for-profit space, your house, your car, and your personal savings are fully shielded.
Now let's compare the two main flavors of companies, private versus public. A private company is great for keeping things relatively close-knit. You only need 2 members to start, up to a maximum of 200, but you legally cannot invite the general public to buy shares. On the flip side, a public company requires a minimum of 7 members, but get this, there is absolutely no maximum limit. You can invite the entire public to subscribe to your shares, which allows you to raise massive, virtually unlimited capital for expansion. The trade-off, though, public companies face much stricter regulatory scrutiny and a complete lack of operational secrecy. All right, we've explored the entire evolutionary ladder of business structures. Now we reach our final stage, choosing your business path.
Every single prospective founder has to weigh these key considerations. What are your actual capital needs? If you're opening a small grocery shop or a local hair salon, a business that requires intense personal attention and low startup costs, a sole proprietorship is honestly going to be your best friend. But if your vision requires heavy capital investment, specialized professional managerial ability, and guaranteed continuity for decades to come, you will inevitably need the structure of a company to bring it all to life.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how the seesaw shifts across the board as we evolve. Look at a proprietorship. Formation is incredibly easy and control belongs entirely to you, but continuity is highly unstable and your liability is totally unlimited. Now move all the way over to the company and the scales completely flip. Formation becomes highly complex with heavy formalities, and daily control actually shifts away from you to elected directors. But in exchange for all that, you gain perpetual continuity and the ultimate shield of limited liability.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer on business organizations. You now have the complete roadmap and all the legal foundations laid out right in front of you. The only thing left is for you to decide. When you finally take the leap, which side of the seesaw are you going to choose for your big idea? Absolute personal control or the power of limited liability and endless scale? Keep learning, keep building, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.